I'm excited to be joined by Arthur Breitman, co-founder of Tezos, and from the Trilly Tech team, Jeremy Fu, head of gaming, Valerie Whitacre, head of art, and Michael Mendes, head of DeFi Partnerships for the second edition of our State of Tezos quarterly call. We will cover several topics on Tezos, including a brief overview of the protocol before diving into recent announcements, key technical updates, and use cases. We'll wrap up the call looking ahead to the rest of the year. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The information contained in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice. So let's kick it off, and I'll turn to you, Arthur. For our first-time listeners, can you give us a bit of a background on Tezos, why it was created, and what differentiates it from other L1s, as well as we have a few people on the call from Trilly Tech, just an explanation of what Trilly Tech is.
Thanks, absolutely. So Tezos came out of a reflection on governance in blockchains. When Bitcoin launched, it created a flurry of innovation. People thought about better ways of doing consensus with proof of stake, about better ways of using the state of the chain for doing smart contracts, about privacy. However, Bitcoin lacked a mechanism for either adopting those innovations while protecting itself from social takeover. So as a result, cultural norms in Bitcoin evolved to reject any innovation. Other blockchains have taken a cavalier approach to upgrading, basically by relying on centralized upgrades. And what Tezos does is offer a platform that can evolve as the technology gets better, as innovation enters the space, by a vote of the token holders. So the chain upgrades itself because the users of the chain can come in and decide how the rules of the protocol itself change. So that's Tezos. The project was started in 2014. The chain has launched in 2018 and has been live since and has gone through over 14 decentralized upgrades in the meantime. As for Trilly Tech is a company based in London who focuses on Tezos, be it improving the Tezos core protocol or Tezos adoption.
So one of the things that we saw recently was the launch of the EVM-compatible rollup on Ghostnet. How do you see Tezos' EVM strategy shaping up compared to other L1s?
So I would say the big trend here is Tezos is scaling. Tezos was the first major protocol to come to proof of stake with economic incentives, and I think it's going to be the first protocol to properly scale. A big part of the scaling strategy in Tezos has been enshrined rollups. So they're not rollups built by VC-backed companies who have a different set of interests than the network. They are supported directly at the level of the protocol as a scaling solution. And as part of that, one of the first rollups launching on Tezos is an EVM rollup, and it's a way for legacy applications who have been developed with Solidity or the languages coming from the Ethereum world to get the benefits of being hosted on a Tezos platform.
So Etherlink recently announced plans to build an L2 solution on Tezos. What is the significance of building L2s on Tezos, and what audience do you see benefiting from L2s and scalability most?
So the announcement came from the Tezos Foundation because Etherlink is the name of a product. It's not so it's not making announcements, right? The launch of the point of the launch of this announcement around Etherlink is to tell the world that yes, if you want to use Ethereum type of technologies, you can now you'll be able to do so on a Tezos blockchain.
And so who do you kind of foresee as being interested in or rather what types of applications do you see as having the most use for L2s on Tezos?
There's different reasons you might want to use an L2. One is scaling. So if you need a lot of throughput, more so than you will find on many networks, using a combination of a Tezos rollup plus a data availability committee is a good option. That could be gaming use cases, for example. If you need really custom logic, so you want to work in a high-level programming language like Rust or Go, as opposed to writing in a smart contract language, so that you can have complete customization for your application. You could see social media type of applications, for example, use a rollup. So we've seen exchanges, centralized exchanges like Coinbase, launch rollup, the base rollup on Ethereum as a complement to their strategy. So I think we'll see potentially other financial institutions in the crypto space launch their own rollups or put some of their states, I would say, inside of a rollup. And the other thing is scaling, is interoperability in general. So if you want to use a specific type of technology, so that you want to deploy on Tezos, but you would like to use EVM, then a rollup gives you one way to do that.
So one of the recent announcements that you guys made was the Nairobi upgrade. So can you speak a little bit to what the Nairobi upgrade is, what it does, and how the market has responded to it thus far across users and builders and others?
There's a variety of upgrades on Tezos. Some of them are major, some of them are more minor. I would say our last major upgrade was Mumbai, because Mumbai made the smart rollup live. The Nairobi upgrade, in comparison, is a smaller upgrade. So it has it has important advantages. So we've seen a large increase in the throughput for transactions. This was due to repricing of how expensive it is in terms of compute to verify signatures. Some improvements to rollups, which are now more easily upgradable. One of the big benefits of writing a rollup on Tezos is it inherits the governance of Tezos. So you inherit the upgradability aspect without hiding everything behind a multi-signature, and a few other cleanups in general in the code. So a more minor upgrade compared to the previous one, but nonetheless always in the spirit of improvement.
And so just a few weeks ago, the Tezos ecosystem gathered for TezDev, which is the Tezos Developer Conference in Paris, where Arthur, you gave a keynote speech. What were the key themes, and what from speaking to the attendees, from speaking to the builders, the developers, why were they really excited about Tezos, and what that you guys were announcing or working on most recently were they most excited about?
Well, I didn't take to everyone asking them what they were excited about, but I based on the blog, it's going to be very anecdotes. But I did give a presentation on some future plans for Tezos, specifically about what we've been calling either Tezos 2.0 or the UHT, which is one big rollup on Tezos. So you've asked, why do people use rollups? And one of the reasons I've given is customization, interoperability. But a good reason to use a rollup as well is just pure scaling. And there's a benefit in moving some of the activity you have on L1 onto a single layer 2. It's often believed that layer 2 scale by just having lots of them. So you could imagine having a bunch of layer 2s in parallel to each other. And what I presented was the idea that actually what you want is just one big layer 2. And it's not obvious that there's benefit to one big layer 2 as opposed to one big layer 1. But if you look into the technologies, it's a lot more scalable to do it this way. And it's also an opportunity for the Tezos ecosystem to introduce more interoperability. So the vision is one large rollup with a lot of throughput, a lot of capacity, but also interoperability in the sense of being able to use virtual machines such as Michelson from Tezos, EVM from Ethereum, but also general programming languages like JavaScript, Python. Most of the world today does not use smart contract languages. They use these generic languages, and being able to support them directly on the platform.
And so, moving to NFTs, and Valerie, we'll look at you to answer this question. Tezos is extremely well known within the NFT space, particularly within arts and culture. How do you view Tezos's role in the NFT space broadly? And do you view the NFT future as being multi-chain? And how do you specifically view the role of Tezos in that future?
Thanks, Josh. As head of art, I am going to comment more specifically on the arts and culture NFT space, but of course the Tezos NFT landscape is much broader than that. And we have the heads of different verticals here as a testament to that, in DeFi and gaming specifically, but also in sports. In arts, the Tezos creator community has championed digital creative content from day one, starting with the Hikiknunk marketplace, which was founded in 2021. And that community really galvanized a global network of creators because of its sustainability, because of the Tezos blockchain sustainability and its affordability at that time. And that community has grown even wider and more loyal since then. Also, in the past 2 years, we've had initiatives with institutions such as Art Basel, MoMA, and Serpentine Galleries, which has really cemented Tezos as the blockchain for arts and culture. And I do firmly believe that it will remain a blockchain distinguished in that landscape, even as other blockchains find their niche in different verticals and different sectors. And I think we're seeing, tool builders give credence to that as well, with many platforms choosing Tezos for its arts and culture network, whether it's ticketing or heritage tokens, and also initiatives to really help artists and galleries and institutions onboard to the blockchain. And that's pretty unique to Tezos, especially with the art vertical team really working tirelessly to make sure these platforms have access to these institutions, to make sure that we're leveraging each other's networks and partnerships and educational opportunities to really bring the wider arts and culture sector onto the Tezos blockchain, and also really kind of initiating these kinds of dialogues that allow people to take advantage of this technology in a way that I don't think other blockchain ecosystems are enabling quite as much.
And so how does arts and culture fit into the growth of Tezos more broadly? It's obviously been one of the areas that I think Tezos has seen a lot of early success in, though there have obviously been other areas that Tezos has been successful in. But given that there are so many users that are interested in arts and culture on Tezos, do you view that as kind of an initial on-ramp into the rest of the Tezos ecosystem, and getting people to do a lot more than just interact with arts and culture? And if so, how do you get somebody who is, maybe collecting art on Tezos to really, interact with and care about the Tezos ecosystem more broadly?
Well, I'm a little bit biased, but I do think that everyone's inner creative can be revived by the accessibility that we find in the Tezos ecosystem. But I have also recently seen a lot of collaborations, and I really encourage those. I think these access points are really about where one's passion lies and how we can really magnify that passion. And more recently, we saw, for instance, Ubisoft, a gaming company, do a hackathon with 6 artists in its headquarters in Paris, really kind of acknowledging that there's this network of creatives that aren't from the gaming sector that could somehow help with this world building and this immense sort of creative space that gamers also really appreciate. And so I think it's really about leveraging the different qualities of these verticals and different NFT communities. We also saw recently a gaming exhibition open at the Serpentine Galleries, and whilst gamers might dispute that it's not really a game, and artists might think, well, why are we investigating gaming as an immersive experience? At least that dialogue is now happening, and it's really blockchain technology and these communities that are inspiring that dialogue to happen. And I think we're just going to see a flurry of magnification and amplification of talent pools from within these verticals. So whilst, of course, we do have our own discussions internally around strategy around this, I do see it happening organically. And I think that's, really where we're going to see a lot of flex in this space, of people acknowledging that there's something to learn from a different vertical, or there's something to kind of build on from that perspective. And I really do think that we're only just seeing the beginning of this type of stuff. So whilst we have internal dialogues around projects that we can make happen with our particular partners, I have a feeling we're just seeing what the community is capable of doing without even discussing things with the arts or the gaming vertical. And that's going to be where a lot of the impact is driven, is these sub networks within the Tezos community that are going to enable some really, really genius use cases to happen and be built on the Tezos blockchain.
So, Michael, pivoting to you and to DeFi, Fraction, a fractional real estate investment platform, just launched on Tezos. Can you talk about the use cases for tokenization on Tezos? And is this a really core area of growth that you guys are tracking and investing in?
Thanks for the question, Josh. So just speaking on Fraction itself, so they are tokenizing real estate in France and are looking to make that accessible to the broader DeFi markets with regards to collateralizing those particular assets. It is a growth area for us. In particular, we're keen to work closely with projects that are onboarding more interesting tradable assets into the Tezos ecosystem. There's a whole bunch of reasons why projects would want to tokenize, or there's been a massive drive towards that, and that's improve accessibility and liquidity, and that works great for assets like real estate. And moving into this composability with the DeFi markets is it overlaps into where I fit into more as the head of DeFi role. So yeah, I would say it aligns very well with our existing strategy, and we're working closely with a whole host of projects to essentially tokenize both real world assets and other assets as well on chain.
So outside of tokenization, what are some of the most exciting developments that you can share around the DeFi ecosystem on Tezos, either this quarter or this year, looking forward?
Yeah, sure. That's thanks for the question again. So more recently, Fireblocks has integrated the FA 1.2 and FA 2 token standards. So that's a very exciting integration for us. Obviously opens up a lot of institutional doors, on-off ramps and centralized exchanges, etc. So that's a very exciting integration. Another one being CordFi. So CordFi is launching something called Power Perpetuals, which will be quite an interesting product for traders. And what Power Perpetuals are, they essentially track the price of an asset raised to a power. And those essentially has some benefits like no liquidation risk. There's always a risk when it comes to these type of assets, but onboarding these sorts of products become quite interesting from a more trader perspective. So that's more one that is recently happening, and they'll probably be launching over the next quarter. Going back to your question, or maybe just touching back on the previous question around tokenization, VNX is also launching tokenized gold and Swiss franc on chain. So that kind of just speaks to our involvement and activity around the tokenization efforts. And maybe one of the more final points is UVES, which is our largest DeFi project. They do synthetics as well as lending and borrowing. They're looking at providing a more trader-centric approach, and essentially meaning that aligning to the needs and demands of traders, and having a UI aligned to that perspective as well. So I'd probably say those four are some of the more exciting developments which are occurring or about to occur.
And can you just kind of, as a follow-up, speak about your DeFi strategy more broadly? What do you view as kind of being the most important pillars of DeFi that you need to have on Tezos? Do you think you have a different strategy than other chains? Do you think it's quite similar, really? How are you thinking about building out DeFi?
Yeah, sure. So we're looking at having a more trader-centric approach. Like, we've got a lot of good builders that have been building some amazing projects. We've got the DEXs, we've got the infrastructure on Tezos, but we're looking at providing the more trader-centric use cases. And that's why I used the word a bit earlier, trader-centric, is being more focused on what these users are looking to and what they want to be doing on Tezos. So our strategy is more to align existing projects as well as onboard new projects that align with this particular approach. And we're seeing this as more of a market need and demand. DeFi is still heavily driven by the needs and demands of traders. We're looking at basically providing the innovation by having a new product, something that traders are not familiar with on other chains. So that's where we're looking at moving our strategy to, is something that they cannot do across any other chain, and having that on our L1. But it still aligns to the need of what the trader is looking to do.
So moving into gaming and Jeremy, how is Tezos equipped to enhance the growth of the blockchain gaming industry and increase gaming adoption of blockchain technology broadly? And are there specific geographic areas that you guys are targeting and interested in from a gamer perspective?
Sounds good. Thanks, Josh. So to start off, I think Tezos is a blockchain. We're secure, we're stable, we're scalable. And as Arthur mentioned, we're constantly upgrading with the latest features and increasing our performance over time. I think more specifically about gaming, we are really focusing on helping game developers to build Web3 features without having any blockchain experience within their teams. The way we do this is providing the tools such as the Tezos SDK for Unity, where we work together with the Unity professional services team to build a verified solution that developers can use to onboard their games into the Web3 space. Next, we need to reduce the friction that players currently encounter when they want to play blockchain games. Players don't want to have to create a wallet and write down 20 words before they can start having fun. And to that end, we have strong projects within our ecosystem, such as a Kukai wallet, which enables social login and has a native app on the way as well. Finally, I think we want to really cultivate a reputation as a place where really high quality projects that care about their players and care about using the blockchain in meaningful ways to come and build within our ecosystem. So to that end, we work really selectively with really top tier partners instead of signing and not supporting thousands of lower quality games. We focus and really support 50 to 100 high quality studios that again really focus on players and bringing innovation to the space. And we by limiting kind of the partners we work with, we're able to devote the time and resources required, including technical support, marketing support, strategic support, etc., in order to help them to succeed together.
And do you kind of as a follow-up to that, right? You said you work with a small number of studios. Do you kind of foresee more opportunity in like the AAA gaming space or in like, the mobile gaming space? Like, where do you see the area? Where do you see the most adoption? And where do you see the most use for blockchains within gaming? Is it kind of equally split between the two? Curious as to your thoughts there.
Yeah, so I think absolutely that we follow kind of a barbell approach where we work with AAA studios like Ubisoft very closely on their innovation and finding ways to integrate the blockchain into their top tier IPs, as well as some new exciting projects that they're building. At the same time, we're also working with indie studios that are really coming up with very creative, exciting, never before seen modes of play. Maybe I'll share a little bit around more on the kind of genre focus that we have, much more so than whether it's a AAA or an indie studio. So typically we try to avoid kind of red oceans like MMOs and FPS games. These games are incredibly difficult to develop and take multiple years and incredibly experienced teams, and not to mention 9-figure budgets sometimes. So we only do explore partnerships in this space if the team already has a strong track record of building a successful Web2 product, because again, MMO and PSs are just incredibly hard to get right. We do see a lot of potential for some other genres. For example, in the simulation genre, where right now there are market leaders that are making games that are making over $1 billion a year, but there's not that much competition besides the one or two incumbents here. There's strong audience fit because these type of games focus on resource allocation, very similar to how some Web3 users do investments. The economy is driven largely by quite a few whales as well, and all the players are kind of looking towards each other for status and position. And so we feel like this type of game is a really strong fit for the target audience. We also look into other innovative games. So games like Dogami, for example, which focuses on pet adoption and being able to use a pet and really feel a strong connection with it and use it across multiple different mini games. The next example would be like a game called Battle Tabs, which is an innovative take on the battleships genre, and the studio is innovating NFTs to add a crafting and player trading component to the game.
And so kind of finally within the gaming space, curious as to, what we should look out for as it relates to Tezos gaming going forward. Is there, we spoke about AAA games, which Sling are supporting. Those obviously take years to release. And so is there anything that we can look forward to there or more broadly, any announcements that are coming out this year?
Absolutely. So one of the other focus areas we're looking at is into a kind of friendly wagering with your friends. And so I think the whole idea here is, you're not playing it to win money, but you're playing it because winning $1 from your friend is much more fun than winning $1 from a stranger or not winning. Yeah. So it's the same way like how it's fun like playing poker. And I think one of the ways we're exploring this is adapting very popular hyper-casual games, such as like trivia games, Agar.io, Sliver.io, and kind of getting inspired by their gameplay, by having this competitive element to it where you play against your friends and you take money from them if you're better than them. So those games are launching over the next 4 months. The first one coming out in late September, and then progressively one for each month after that. The Dogami game, which I mentioned earlier, they are also close to launching. They have I believe, an open beta for their NFT holders right now, where it's a mini racing game where you can equip your Doga with different items and have them race in kind of procedurally generated courses and see how they perform, and you can upgrade them and train them over time as well. So these are some of the kind of exciting games that are coming up in our ecosystem over the next couple of months.
And so back to you, Arthur, to speak about kind of looking ahead and you know, the roadmap for Tezos. So what does Tezos's roadmap look like for the rest of 2023, both from a technology development and upgrade standpoint, but also from an ecosystem growth standpoint?
But I'm glad you asked, because Tezos cannot have a roadmap. Tezos is a blockchain, and many players in this industry are more than happy to basically blur the distinction. And you know, they'll talk about Ethereum's roadmap. Well, how can Ethereum have a roadmap if it's decentralized? Who's deciding on its roadmap? And you know, it's not just de facto, but also de jure. The Ethereum Foundation, it tells you to upgrade, and you know, this is the upgrade you should follow. So there is such a thing as an Ethereum roadmap. But if you think about it, for a decentralized network, it makes zero sense. And we've lived in an environment where people say, oh, you know, it's like a company. Well, no, it's not. Tezos is not a company, it's a product. So Tezos cannot and will never have a roadmap. It doesn't make any sense. However, there are core teams working in the Tezos ecosystem, like Nomadic Labs, like Trilly Tech, like Marigold. And these teams do have a really interesting roadmap. But what's key and what's very important in Tezos is that they cannot impose this roadmap on anyone. The only thing they can do is they can propose upgrade to the network, and the participants in the network are free to accept them. They're free to reject them. They can inject their own. There's no one is in a privileged position of changing the Tezos network, and that's super important in Tezos, and that's something that is completely neglected by the rest of the industry, which is all too content with hiding deficiencies behind multi-signatures, just saying like, oh, look, it's ready now and we'll decentralize later. None of that. So the roadmap that's coming out of these core development teams, I'm very excited about. It's one that's very focused on improving both the interoperability. I've touched upon that by allowing multiple programming languages to be used in Tezos rollups, but also scaling, like having really a very large amount of throughput. We haven't really seen very large amount of scaling in the blockchain space so far. It's also focused on latency. I would say compared to the competition, the Tezos latency is one of the aspects that hasn't improved as much. It's currently about 15 seconds per block, and there's a hope in bringing that down to around 3 seconds. Another aspect that's actively being developed is a data availability layer. So for rollups are a great way of scaling computation. If you want to call a lot of smart contracts and have a lot of compute available, they're great for that. But you also need a place to store the transaction. Like the transaction needs to live somewhere. And right now, what happens is you can either use the Tezos chain itself as a data availability solution. So you post the transaction on a chain, they're executed by a rollup. Or you can use the data availability committee. And data availability layer is a way of essentially using the network of bakers on a Tezos blockchain and having them essentially shard the data being used by rollups. And that's a way to really enable scaling. Data availability has been talked a lot about. A lot of platforms are trying to implement their data availability solution. And I think Tezos it will be at the forefront of implementing a really scalable data availability solution that works. So that's a big, I would say, so latency, interop, and one big high throughput rollup, and data availability layer at the level of the core chain. Those, I would say, are the main elements that these companies are working at.
So you just spoke to the decentralized nature of Tezos, and how it works from a governance perspective, and how things go from proposal kind of into production. But can you kind of speak about how the community is engaged within that, and how these proposals kind of actually come to fruition, right? Like, what is the governance process really looks like? Are the teams that are building on Tezos working with the community, speaking to community developers? Would love to kind of hear about the nature of that interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a formal governance side and the informal governance side. So on the formal governance side, the proposals are crafted as working code. They're not ideas, they're working code. A hash of that code is taken, is submitted to the network, and then there's a 5-phase voting, which starts with a approval period where you can have multiple competing proposals and people can upvote the proposal they like the most. In the next phase, you have the first vote, which needs a 50% quorum and an 80% supermajority. Then you have a quiet phase where we basically say we take stock of what's happened in the previous vote, pause a little bit, then a confirmation vote, and then finally you have an adoption period where the chain doesn't do anything and just prepare itself for automatically switching to the new protocol. So it's a long process. It's a conservative process. The point is not to get anything willy-nilly. In terms of the actual process on the product side, so how does these companies come up with products? Well, they have a lot of developers who use the Tezos blockchain. Of course, they talk to adoption teams who are in touch with a lot of developers. So they're attuned to the to what people want out of this blockchain. One of the feedback that was received from potential customers or users of the chain for a while has been that EVM compatibility was important. And so one of the best way to achieve that is through a rollup, because you can really get full compatibility with not just EVM, but with the entire CRM ecosystem. And you also get out of that a way to, I would say, drive the development of the rollup solutions. We know we need rollup anyway for scaling, and so having like a concrete rollups to build the theoretical development of the rollup engine on the chain is very useful. So that was a good thing at the intersection of like building for the long term, but also like really building in response to demand. In general, people want lower latency. People want low fees. Throughput is a question that comes often. People say, well, Tezos already has a lot of throughput. Why invest in scaling solutions when you don't have full blocks? And I think that's a misconception, because oftentimes, we would talk to potential partners or users and they would say, well, sure, fees are low, but what if it gets very successful and we have a lot of usage? Then the fees would be high anyway, right? So you don't just want to have low fees, you want to have credibly low fees. And what scaling gets you, even if you don't have an amount of usage that would feel the scale, is that it gives you credibly low fees, which is in the feedback we get from people who want to use the chain, incredibly important. So yeah, that's how these feedbacks take place. We also have web forums where these things are discussed. So this can be discussed, for example, on Tezos Agora, so which is tezosagora.org. There's just like research sections, so I encourage you to check it out. So that's a bit of the informal process. I would love for this informal process to get formalized a little more, to have a little more bandwidth, I would say, between the teams and the adoption. It's something that increased over the years. I would say a lot of it has been due to expediency, because at the end of the day, it's not very hard to figure out that people want lower latency. The message is very loud and clear. But as we go into more subtle trade-offs and more subtle decisions about the design, then it gets more important to have this like detailed feedback.
Yeah, so I think this actually brings up a good point, and something I'd like to follow up on. We now are kind of in a place where there are it feels like every week more L1s and L2s and projects coming out, and more rollups on Ethereum. And so the subtlety, it seems like there are an increasingly large number of conversations around subtlety. And so with that said, what would you say are the main reasons that you guys have been able to attract developers to build on Tezos, and what do those conversations look like, and what are the things that both maybe Tezos Foundation efforts to go out and attract developers, or developers that are coming to you? What are you hearing are the main reasons that they're excited about building on Tezos?
It varies. The main one that I hear is community. So people are quite like the community of developers around Tezos, the community of users around Tezos. There's a lot of people help each other. The quality of the technology also matters, and of course it feeds into it, because if you care about the quality, I think it attracts a certain type of people, and those people also like-minded people. So again, I was giving the example of multi-sigs. Tezos does things for real. There's a lot of L2 solutions out there today, and if you peek under the hood, they're basically entirely centralized. Or if you're looking at Base from Coinbase, I think it's a great initiative for an exchange to launch a roll-up. However, it's based on the Optimism stack, and Optimism has not implemented fraud proofs, which are the most basic security elements of a roll-up. So they are people, and then I guess maybe it's both a matter of security and quality and a matter of taste. There are people who are pulled off by that and are attracted by the Tezos ecosystem, which has, I would say, a lot of attention in doing things for real and keeping things decentralized. And so, yes, the community around it has been, and the quality of the tools has been a draw for developers. There's also some grants from the Tezos Foundation in some cases, which have helped development. But by and large, what make people come and stay is the quality of the community.
And so with that, my final question, I'll pose this to everyone. And so maybe, we can go Valerie, Jeremy, Michael, and then finish with you, Arthur, is, looking ahead for the rest of the year and beyond, what are you guys individually most excited about for Tezos and for crypto and Web3 more broadly? So Valerie, why don't we start with you?
Thanks for asking. I think I'll echo Arthur's sentiments around quality and taste. I really do think that the Tezos creator community is really making art. And whilst PFP projects are great for community building, are, I think, much more coming to the fore in terms of mechanisms for DAOs and things like that, we're really seeing a fervor of people that otherwise would have never had the chance to really be creative on chain. And we're seeing more and more traditional artists adopt this technology as a way of expanding their practice. Estates of artists who would have otherwise used blockchain if the technology had been available earlier. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that kind of in all pockets, because people inherently are going to go to where they find, maybe a voice that they trust or a network that they consider worth investing in. But we're seeing a lot of that on Tezos. And whilst I can't reveal every institution that's going to be working with us in the future, I'm especially excited around the kind of thought leadership in this space, both from traditional Web3 communities where people are really looking into, the art history books and who are looking into the history of the art market and how blockchain fits within that larger legacy model and how we can really make this flourish with the background knowledge of where arts and culture kind of came from. And that includes in the retail space and the community building space as well. But I think what I'm really, really excited for is seeing how that community is really emphasizing quality and standards of best practice in a way that no other blockchain ecosystem is really making happen at this point in time. And I think that momentum is really what I'm most excited for moving forward.
Yeah, I actually want to echo that. Like, if anyone listening hasn't, go to FX Hash, go to Object. It's actually incredibly cool. Full credit, right, as to the community that's managed to develop around Tezos and the type of art that's being built. It is unique, right? And I think you hit on that. But maybe turning to you, Jeremy, and kind of your perspective on what you're most excited about, for Tezos and for crypto and Web3 beyond this year.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so I think just echoing what I shared, I think that right now we're going to see real games hit the market on Tezos within the next 3 to 6 months. It's been a journey because games take a long time to build, and so now finally I think we'll get some high quality content in addition to our existing Tezotopia and Dogami. We'll have much more high quality content so to suit a wide variety of players. And I think all these new games that are upcoming, Dogami, the casual PvP games, Gangbusters with battle tabs, I think all of these would would really, again, give the players in our ecosystem something to do and something to enjoy, and really showcase how blockchain can make games better. I think what I'm excited about is also similar around, we've always talked around how blockchain can enable player trading and interoperability. I think some of our games will start to showcase this as well, and again, really drive the use case home about how the Tezos blockchain can make games more fun for our players.
Michael, turning it to you.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. Maybe from a more broader perspective, there's an evolving landscape at the moment, like when it comes to regulation, when it comes to how these markets are changing, and that dynamic is resulted in something called a permission DeFi world. I don't particularly like the word of itself, but it's this evolving landscape around where you have DeFi, you've got something called permission DeFi, which is the emergence of the traditional market world, along with the actual DeFi world. And to me, that kind of theme will continue to the future. So that, I think, is one to look out for, one that can be exciting to evolve. Having said that, there will be an evolution in terms of more innovative projects and products that will launch, that making it more accessible for traders. That is something that I think will continue to be a theme moving forward in more a DeFi perspective. And then maybe just touching to echo some of Jeremy's comments around the gaming and the gaming aspects. So being able to interact with those particular gaming assets from like a DEX, we probably will see a more composability between the gaming verse as well as DeFi as well. So I'm expecting to see these kind of themes move forward into the future, which is quite exciting to see how that all ends up.
And then finally, Arthur, would love to finish with you on your thoughts about where you're most excited.
Sorry. Well, of course, the thing that matters the most is adoption at the end of the day. Everything we're doing is adoption. But, the kid inside me really loves to see the technology play out, because we are building something really exciting and really things cool. And so I'm an engineer at heart, and just being the chain being able to crank out lots of transaction, do it in a decentralized manner, be the first to actually scale, to actually have a proper data availability layers. That's extremely exciting to me. I'm not gonna lie. On the adoption side, there's a lot of use cases I've been a fan of for a long time before we ever saw them. I'm a big believer in gaming on blockchains. We haven't seen, I would say, a lot of very meaningful integration in time games. We've seen integrations, but they haven't been very deep, and I think they're going to get deeper over time. I'm very excited about that. I absolutely adore the art and generative art scene on Tezos. It's absolutely gorgeous. And again, I'll echo your call to go check out FXH, go check out object.com. The piece is absolutely stunning. So I look forward to this developing. I would love to see this develop as well. I've said it many times in the music space. I am a big music fan. I think it's a beautiful form of art, and it's still largely untapped in the digital collectible world, even though people love collecting music. On the DeFi side, I come from a finance background. I love financial engineering, financial structuring. So I'm a big fan of markets. We've seen a lot of very circular DeFi so far, but the rails are there. And so can these rails be used for more meaningful finance? Can we see DeFi used for real-world assets? Can we see DeFi used for actually financing things? That would be very exciting for me. I know that prediction markets, they exist. They haven't had a lot of traction, but it's something I'm passionate about. And seeing prediction market work at scale, I don't think it's been cracked, would be absolutely fantastic to see on Tezos.
Yeah, I actually agree with the prediction market piece. It feels like it's been something we've been circling around for, years in crypto, and it just hasn't. Do you think there is some specific impetus that will take it off?
So there's one thing that hasn't really been tried, and a lot of people look at prediction market as like, oh, you could learn something, and they see it as like a trading application, but you could also see it as a way to convert money into information. So prediction market created not with the purpose of just enabling trading, but with the purpose of like purchasing crowd information. So like where you specifically say, I want to create a market and I want to put liquidity in that because I want the answer to a question. Like I want to pay, and that's how I'm getting the answer to my question, by paying to the markets. That hasn't really been attempted in the crypto space. By and large, people hope that speculative activity in those markets is going to subsidize liquidity, and sometimes it does. Clearly, for some sport use cases and like marginally politics use cases, you have enough uninformed traders that you can subsidize liquidity. But for a lot of cases, you mostly have informed traders, And if you want to use them as truth finding devices, you want to be able to provide you want to be able to just basically provide a liquidity on the input and then get an answer on the output.
Awesome. Well, this was really great. I really loved this format that we did, and getting to hear from Art, DeFi, and gaming, and then obviously from you, Arthur. So thank you all for joining, and I look forward to doing this next quarter.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.